Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Monster the Ed Gein Story, Episode 8. I am Gio, your host, and this is I'm Scared! And we finally get. I feel like this was a very nice ending to a legacy. I know this is a lot more Hollywoodish. I don't think it was really the part of it, but I really like how this ending really works. We get a lot of perspective in different, serial killers or different killers as well, because we get, that one guy, I already forgot his name, but you get that one guy who's talking about how Ed Gein was his inspiration, and we get this point in time where, you know what, I think I'm jumping the gun here, but let's hear that theme and then let's get into it.
If you are prone to scary easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review, so you don't have to. So you don't have to.
All right, so let me go back to what I was saying. I really, you get this perspective of this other person who committed crimes and now is in jail and what inspired him. And a lot of his stories were about Ed Gein and what he did. And this is where we get to see, like, kind of the full Buffalo Bill type of thing that they were trying to grab, right? You see him having this suit made of, women's skin everywhere, right? He made like a suit, had a mask on. You see him dancing like if you were a woman, kind of a thing, just exactly what Buffalo Bill did. Again, I realized late after I've been writing this, I did do an episode of Silence of the Lambs. So if you want to go into that and kind of see who Buffalo Bill is, if you're like, who the heck is Buffalo Bill? He just basically was a guy who made, he caught women, made them lotion themselves so that the skin was smooth, and then he ended up killing because he wanted to create like this suit to be like a woman. And so you see that, Ed Gein did a similar thing, a lot more probably grotesque than you can think of. I think there's any of that perspective is grotesque. But he did that, and you see like that kind of perspective of this guy being like, "Oh, I'm so inspired," and then you see something that I really liked because we kick off this season, or sorry, the end of this episode and the end of the season, with a killer coming in, very nice, asking for help, pretending he has a broken arm, and then hitting the girls, and then the rest is history. Yes, we get a glimpse of Ted Bundy. And I love the perspective that we get from Ed with this because as Ted Bundy is going on and getting killed, they get FBI people to come to kind of talk to Ed about, hey, what is going, like we're trying to catch this guy, and like I said, Ed's in a mental hospital. He can go about, he can read news. He's not, out of the loop of anything. And so they come and discuss with him just like, hey, can you tell me like what one thing here, what one thing there? Like, give us some clues if anybody has written to you that could lead us to such person, or maybe if the person did because it was such inspiration. And the cool part was that there was, like the inmate that's discussing all this, he sends a letter kind of to congratulate or to appreciate Ed Gein and his inspiration to him for being the murderer. But in that letter was also another letter that was sent to that guy who came from exactly Ted Bundy, who was his inspiration. So you see like a line, kind of like a generational line of, well, Ed Gein started something, then someone got inspired, and then that person did something, and then someone got inspired by that person, so on and on and on. The bloodline never dies. So that's why this episode is called The Godfather, right? Because we're not only dealing with just one person doing something and it ends. We're talking about a legacy lives on, through people wanting to do the same things, right? I love how, like I said, this episode, blurs a lot of what's fact and what's fiction because we don't know exactly like if all the letters or all these things were part of it. We're not 100% sure if many of these people can claim that it was really because of Ed Gein that they were inspired to do their, acts or not, right? But we get a pretty good glimpse of just how he wanted to do what was right in his own perspective. He has now been in the institution. He is having a handle of his mental issue, and he is realizing that there's a lot of bad people out there. Like like I said in the last episode, he wasn't really like looking for fame. He didn't want to do all these things because he wanted to be the number one serial killer or he wanted to make a name for himself. He did want to do good in a way. He wanted to be good in a way. And in this one, it gives him that opportunity. So I'm not sure if it was real that he helped or not. But again, so let me go into it. That one guy sends a letter, and in the letter is Ted Bundy. Then he, as Ed, sends that letter and kind of gives it to the FBI to say, hey, I think this guy's name is Ted. This is what we got. And from there, they were able to capture him, right? And say that there was an anonymous tip. Someone's in Florida, here or there. I don't know how in sequence that is to the reality of Ted Bundy getting caught. But it was nice seeing that in the end he wanted to be that help to catch someone doing bad things, right? And it leaves him with that sense of I did good, He, of course, he's old and he ends up having cancer, ends up passing away, right? And it's left to there. His his life is done, but what he created, what he did, is now something like a legacy. Everybody knows him as a legend, right? Not everybody who doesn't really respect killing, to be honest, but he just became like the origin of horror franchise. Not only fictional killers, but our fascination with them, right? We as horror fanatics, and those who aren't brave enough to watch them, that's why you're listening to my podcast. We are fascinated in a way of seeing things that no one can really fathom can actually happen, but they actually have happened. So there's all this stuff. So the show raises the big question, and I wrote this down because it was a question: is the monster the maker or the maid? Right? And I'm not talking about maid, the one who cleans your house. I'm talking about is the monster one who has been a monster the whole time and goes on and is a monster, or is he made the monster? Right? All these people being inspired by serial killers and then doing it. Was it really that they were they were made to do it, or were they always a monster and then they wanted to create that, right? That leads us to that because he, in the end, like I said, he wanted to do right. To be honest, if it were true that he was able to help capture Ted Bundy, then I feel like he finally was able to say, okay, cool, I did something right. Will he be forgiven? I am not Jesus. I cannot say that he will or will not be. I don't know. But I feel like in a way for him, he redeemed himself if it were be true, right? Again, this is all between myth, like what was really good, what is really made by Hollywood. But we end it there. Ed is now dead. This legacy is continued on. I love the fact that you see the legacy within these kids who are, playing in the graveyard. They're destroying his grave in Wisconsin because, who is he? He's someone who destroyed, the town's legacy or whatevs. And one of the kids, ends up falling. He's about to run, and you see all the characters, right? You see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or at least Ed with the uh, with the chainsaw. You see Buffalo Bill. You see the Psycho guy. You see all these inspirations we got for classic horror films, and so I really like that, like, kind of ode to him, saying like, "Hey, thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for what we got for our horror fantasies," and just left it to that. Right? I know I heard stories that Charlie Hunsaker, I think it was, the actor who portrayed him, actually went to his actual grave in Wisconsin and told him, "Hey, I just finished the movie. I hope I did well. I am giving, sending this off," and I feel like that was really respectful because, again, we don't know in reality like how the schizophrenia at that time was handled. But I think it was really good to see that we got an ending where he really wasn't looking for fame. He just wanted to live a normal life, had some fascinations like we do, but unfortunately, something clicked in his head and it ended up becoming reality. So, my advice to you guys, make sure you know what is accurately true in your life. What is really myth and memory? Make sure you keep what is the real memory and not the myth. Well, until next time with a new series, in any case, a new movie. See you all next week.
If you are prone to scare easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review.